All right. So again, good afternoon and welcome to our first afternoon Learn series webinar. Today we are going to be discussing the New York Forward Loan Program. I'm really excited to do that. For those of you that may not be in the know, these loans are specifically designed to help businesses as they reopen for business and can be used for a variety of purposes. During the webinar, we're very fortunate to have Mr. Matthew Kennedy with Empire State Development. And Matthew will provide an overview of this program as well as touching on topics such as eligibility components, regional loan distribution, and the entire application process. Again, we want to give a huge shout out to our Learn series sponsor, Tompkins Trust Company. We are very fortunate today also to be partnering with business leaders of color to bring you this information with Empire State Development. If this is your first time joining us for a Learn series, just feel free for our attendees who are actually with us today. If you use the chat function inside of Zoom, you should be able to post any questions that you may have, or if there's something that Matthew brings up in the middle of the presentation that you want to make sure you don't forget, feel free to write yourself a little note in the chat. We will have time built in at the end for question and answer. And again, this session is being recorded today and will be placed on the Chamber's website as well as Business Leaders of Color's website for future viewings as well. So without further ado, because I know we have a lot of content to cover and I want to make sure we have time for people's questions, I do want to turn things over to Mr. Matthew Kennedy. And just a quick show of hands, can everyone see the shared screen for that says New York Forward Loan Fund? All right, awesome. All right, Matthew, I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself, but I will be here, and I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So, well, once again, my name is Matthew Kennedy. I'm from Empire State Development's Division for Small Business and Technology Development. I'm actually based out of the statewide office in Albany, and the Division for Small Business has many programs that are specifically aimed for small businesses, and I actually work in the Access to Capital Division, working on loan programs for small businesses. And the New York Forward Loan Fund is a new loan fund that we just created in May that was just enhanced in the last 10 days that can help many small businesses as they're trying to move out of the COVID-19 outbreak or recover from it. So again, this is a new economic recovery loan program that's aimed at supporting small businesses, nonprofits, and small residential landlords as they reopen. It targets small businesses of 20 or fewer employees, which is about 90% of the businesses in the state of New York, along with nonprofits and small residential landlords that have seen a loss of rental income with working capital loans. So these are specifically loans for working capital of up to $100,000. And as working capital, they can be used for many different things: inventory, marketing, refitting for social distancing guidelines. And the loans are specifically available to small businesses and nonprofits that did not receive a Small Business Administration Paycheck Protection Program loan of greater than $50,000 or an economic injury disaster loan of any size, except for the economic injury disaster advance grants of up to $10,000. So I want to point out that that's an important change. When this program originally started, the intention was because there were many businesses that were unable to take advantage of paycheck protection, that we intentionally tried to direct it so that if you'd received a Paycheck Protection Program loan, you would not be eligible, because we were trying to reserve the money for those businesses. But as they expanded the Paycheck Protection Program, more and more businesses took advantage of it, and we realized that we had the ability to do this. Because a lot of small businesses that did receive Paycheck Protection Program loans, especially businesses with fewer than 20 employees, say if you only had 4 or 5 employees, you didn't qualify for very much because it was based on payroll. So this is something different. This is not based on your payroll. So access to these loans, I said, these are for small businesses and nonprofits and small residential landlords. And for small residential landlords, we're targeting the owners of residential buildings of fewer than 50 units. And they're prioritizing loans for residential landlords whose properties are in the low to moderate income census tracts and who serve low to moderate income tenants. Unlike paycheck protection, these loans are not forgivable in part or in whole. They do need to be paid back over a 5-year term with interest, and at least 60% of the loans that we're making we expect to be made to minority and women-owned businesses around the state. So 60% of it's being reserved for that. So how do you apply? Simple enough. We have a pre-application portal, www.nyloanfund.com. On the right-hand side of the screen here, you'll see there is a screenshot of our actual loan fund page. That's the real page. You'll see there are two places where you can click to begin a pre-application. Right there on the top on the menu bar, where overview loan terms, it's all the way to the right. You see pre-application. Or you can scroll all the way to the bottom of the screen and click on the red button that says Apply Now, and that'll begin the process. So it's a very straightforward process. Probably only take you about 5 minutes to actually complete the pre-application. I want to point out that this is not a first-come, first-served loan program. So what is happening with it is applications are being reviewed on a rolling basis. There's quite a bit of money available in the program. It's not a situation where the first people in line are going to end up with all the money because there's quite a lot of money available. So don't be afraid to go on. There's lots of funding in your area to go in and complete the loan. You're not going to get locked out like so many people did with Paycheck Protection and EIDL. There are 5 community development financial institutions that are lenders that are accepting applications through our system. The application portal itself is going to help you choose the best lender for your industry and your location. So the reason we have this portal is because this is what's going to help guide you to the right place. Please do not apply to these lenders directly for this program because you actually can't. Ultimately, for them to get the funding for these loans, they do need to go through this website. So for small businesses, actually on East, the National Development Council Impact Loan Fund, Pursuit, True Fund Financial Services are all doing loans for small businesses. For nonprofits, it's the National Development Council Impact Loan Fund along with True Fund Financial Services again. And for small residential landlords, and this goes for all small residential landlords, the loans are through Community Preservation Corporation. So, and I'm going to point out as just a tip, if you're a small landlord and you've gone onto the New York Forward Loan Fund site and completed the pre-application, and when you get to the end where it chooses who you've matched to, if for some reason you're a small landlord and you have not matched to Community Preservation Corporation, you've matched to another lender, then you've made a mistake someplace in your application where you chose the wrong industry, because all small residential landlords should match to them. So I'll talk a little bit about small business, the qualifications and what the terms are for small businesses. So now these, again, are working capital loans of up to $100,000 on a 5-year term. And the amount you're allowed to borrow is the lesser of $100,000 or up to 100% of your average monthly revenues for a 3-month period prior to COVID-19. Now this can be any 3-month period in the year 2019 or between January and March 2020. Now the nice thing here is this is based on your revenues, it's not based on your payroll. And the other nice thing here is that you can choose what period works best for your business. So if you are a seasonal business and you do most of your revenue is generated in the summertime, you can choose 3 months in the summertime. If you're a retail business or most of your business is going to be in the fourth quarter, it's going to be for the holidays, you can choose the holiday period for your revenue basis. So it's very flexible, really far more flexible than some of these other loan programs have been for COVID-19 recovery. Interest rate wise, for small businesses, the annual rate is 3%. So it's a fixed 3% loan. Repayment is for 5 years. For the first 12 months, you actually are making only interest payments. So it's interest only paid monthly for the first 12 months. The remaining 4 years after that, months 13 through 60, that's interest and principal, also paid monthly. So that is how you're going to pay this loan back. Now, use of proceeds. Proceeds are required to be used for working capital. But again, this is a very broad category. So you can use working capital loans for inventory marketing, refitting for social distancing guidelines, maintenance, property taxes, rent, supplies, utilities, practically everything, payroll. The one thing you cannot use it for is you cannot refinance existing loans. You can't refinance existing debt with it. Anything else is essentially fair game to use the loan proceeds for. And the loan applicant is going to be required to detail the anticipated use of funds when they apply. So when you ultimately apply with the lender, when the lender goes through the underwriting process with you, they are going to request information as to how you think you're going to use the money. It's not cast in stone, but that's what they're going to be asking for. So for borrower fees, there are no application fees. There can be late payment fees if you missed a payment, of course. There are no collateral requirements, and there are no prepayment penalties. So you can always prepay the loan without penalty. So now for eligibility. For small businesses to be eligible, you have to employ 20 or fewer full-time employees. The quick rule of thumb is that a part-time employee is going to count as half a full-time employee. So 2 part-time would be 1 full-time. If you can employ up to 40 part-time employees. You have to have gross revenues of less than $3 million per year. So that's the maximum cap for how much gross revenue you're allowed to generate. You cannot have received, or you must not have received a Paycheck Protection Program loan greater than $50,000 or an economic injury disaster loan of any size, except for economic injury advance grants. If you received an EIDL grant, you can use that money. That money is allowed. Of course, the grants and the loans kind of work together, but a lot of people did receive grants that never actually took the loans. So, of course, you have to suffer a direct economic hardship as a result of COVID-19. I'm sure that covers everybody. You have to have been in business for at least a year. This is the date of loan application. So it's the date of loan application. And you have to be headquartered in and do business in the state of New York. And the pre-application we expect will be completed and submitted by the owner of the business with the largest ownership interest. So any owner with more than 20% ownership is going to be required to attest to the information that you're inputting. There are a few ineligible businesses. These are generally the same sort of ineligible businesses that are ineligible for SBA loans and all sorts of any of these government-backed loans. Corporate-owned franchises, not-for-profit social clubs, branch banks, payday loan stores, pawn shops, astrologers, palm readers, liquor stores, nightclubs, adult bookstores, massage parlors, strip clubs, track wagering facilities, marijuana dispensaries. Typically the sin businesses that are excluded from all these types of programs. That still applies for this particular program too. Now, for documentation, it's important to point out that when you're completing your pre-application, you're not really going to need any documentation. The pre-application questions, when you go to that portal, are very straightforward. Documents are not collected at that point in the process. You're not going to need to have them handy when you do that. However, once you begin the process with the lender ultimately is going to collect documentation for the loan. So some of the things that lenders are going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for your most recent tax returns for your business. Generally, they're also going to be looking for income statements or cash flow statements. A lot of times the things they're going to use for determining cash flows are going to be bank statements. A schedule of ownership as to who owns your business. There's an executed attestation form. There's an attestation form that the lender is going to supply for you to sign that basically says you did not receive an EIDL loan or a PPP loan greater than $50,000. It's it's an affidavit essentially. Along with, you're going to need a brief description of the impacts of COVID-19 on your business and your jobs and your revenues. That really goes along with how you're going to use the funds. You'll need your articles of incorporation, or the documents that are the legal formation for your business entity. So if it's a DBA or your articles of incorporation or your bylaws, what have you. And for small businesses, personal credit reports are required for anyone who has more than a 20% or greater interest in the small business. So, and your lender is going to reach out to you. The lender will reach out to the loan applicant to collect that required documentation, conduct the credit checks, and finalize the application review process with you. Each of the lenders has a slightly different process as to how they have you upload things. It's all done socially distanced, but they're going to have their own portal, and they're going to walk you through their own process. Everyone's a little bit different, so we don't break it out in this presentation. So now, for small residential landlords, okay, the terms are very, very similar. However, the calculation is a little bit different as to how much they're allowed to borrow. Now, for small landlords, it's up to $100,000, the lesser of $100,000, or their projected reduction in 6 months net operating income based on their actual lost income for the month of April or May 2020. So, what does that mean? Well, if I am a small landlord that would normally be able to collect $25,000 in rent in April of 2020, but thanks to COVID-19 and people's inability to pay, I was only able to collect $15,000 in rent. That's that $10,000 loss. So I use that as my basis. $10,000 times 6 would be $60,000, so I could borrow up to $60,000 if I chose to. That would be the maximum amount I could borrow. Now, for small landlords, same fixed interest rate as small businesses, 3%, with a 5-year repayment term, with the same repayment terms. Interest only for the first year. Years 2 through 5 are interest and principal. Same use of proceeds. Again, they're working capital loans. Obviously, small landlords are probably going to use them more for maintenance and property taxes and utilities and so forth. But it's the same working capital requirements. Refinance of existing loans is not permitted. Again, you can't refinance an existing loan. Loan applicant is going to be required to detail their anticipated use of funds. There are no application fees. There can be late fees if you miss a payment, but there are no collateral requirements, and the borrower can always prepay the loan without penalty. Now, for residential landlord eligibility, a small landlord must meet the following requirements. You have to have no more than 200 units under ownership, no single property greater than 50 units. So there's no revenue cap. It is based on the number of units that you own. Properties must be either located in a low to moderate income census tract or meet a rent test where property rents are affordable to tenants of low to moderate income. Property should have a positive cash flow for a 12-month period prior to the New York Forward Loan Fund request. You can be in forbearance with your mortgage. If your lender has given you an active forbearance where they're not requiring you to make your payments right now, they're pushing them to the end of the loan, that is acceptable. Or they have to have proof that you've not missed a monthly debt service payment for the last 12 months, or no active mortgage, of course. Property should be current on their property taxes through March. Property owners will have to attest that they're not going to evict COVID-impacted non-paying tenants. It's actually right now, of course, there's a moratorium on being able to evict COVID-impacted tenants. It's actually whatever that moratorium is, or 90 days after the close of your loan, whichever date is later. And property should be in good repair with no life and safety violations. And also, to suffer a direct economic hardship as to COVID-19, been in business for at least a year of the date of the loan application, and properties must be located in the state of New York. So unfortunately, you can't use this for your Airbnb in Florida. The pre-application, again, should be submitted by the owner of the business with the largest ownership interest, and owners that have more than 20% ownership are going to be required to attest to the information. You'll also, one of the things that's different here is that although they weren't really eligible for them, there are no PVP or EIDL requirements as a small landlord. Of course, small landlords weren't eligible for PVP to begin with. So now for documentation. Documentation is very, very similar. You're going to need your most recently filed tax returns with an income and expense statement. Most important thing with a small landlord is going to be you're going to need your property rent roll. That's going to show the economic impact. Your property rent roll is going to show who hasn't been able to pay, along with your schedule of ownership, that executed attestation form I mentioned previously, the hardship letter that specifies the impacts on jobs and revenues, again, goes along with the use of the funds, that forbearance disclosure statement if your loan is in forbearance with your mortgage, evidence of legal formation of your business entity, same thing as before, along with personal credit reports. If you're a small residential landlord, it's the same 20% requirement. If you're 20% or larger partner in the business, you're going to need to have your personal credit report pulled. And the lender, again, is going to reach out to the loan applicants to collect the required documentation, conduct credit checks, and finalize the application review process with you. So, and now, nonprofits. Nonprofits are a little bit different. Again, slightly different calculation, but largely the same. A working capital loan of up to $100,000 on a 5-year term, and again, it's the lesser of $100,000 or up to 100% of their average monthly expenses for a 3-month period prior to the COVID-19 outbreak. So this is actually based on your budget. And the 3-month period, again, could be any 3-month period in 2019 through January to March 2020. Nice thing here with a nonprofit is a lot of nonprofits are seasonal, where if you're a food bank, you're going to have most of your spend is going to be in the holiday period. And again, if you're a summer camp, most of your spend is going to be in the summertime. So I'll let you choose what basis you want to use. Again, interest rates. Nonprofits have a slightly different interest rate. It's actually a 2% interest rate for nonprofits. 2% fixed, has to do with where the money's coming from. And the repayment is a 5-year term again. The first 12 months are interest only, and then the remaining years 2 through 5 are interest to principal. With the same use of proceeds, again, their working capital can be used for nearly anything, except they can't be reused to refinance an existing loan. So no refinancing existing debt. Loan applicant's going to be required to detail their anticipated use of funds. Still no application fees, no collateral requirements. Borrower can prepay the loan without penalty. All the same as the other programs. Now, for eligibility, things are a little different for eligibility for nonprofits. A nonprofit needs to be organized as a 501c3 or a faith-based organization. And I want to point out that you can't use the proceeds for the support of religious worship or activities. However, a faith-based organization could offer other activities that weren't religious worship or faith-based that could qualify. So you have to employ 20 or fewer full-time employees, and you have to offer direct services. So a daycare service, a legal aid, a food bank, soup kitchen, senior shuttle, education programs, after-school programs, summer camps, clothing banks, things like that. You have to offer a direct service. And again, like I said, this is a situation where a faith-based organization might run a food bank. And while the faith-based organization couldn't use the proceeds of this to, say, buy hymnals, they could use the money to buy shelves for the food bank. So, it's a different, it has to really, when it comes to nonprofits, the use of funds, that statement of use of funds is so important because it's really going to dictate one of the major qualifications for the program. So, again, you have to have an annual operating budget of less than $3 million, so it's the same $3 million cap like a small business. And again, this is the same for small businesses. You must not have received a Paycheck Protection Program loan of greater than $50,000. If you received a loan smaller than $50,000, $50,000 or less, you're eligible. Only if you received one that was greater than $50,000. Or an economic injury disaster loan for COVID-19 in any amount except for EIDL advance grant of up to $10,000. So again, exactly the same as a small business. Of course, you have to suffer direct economic hardship as a result of COVID-19. That's really everybody. You have to have been in operation for at least a year. It's the date of the loan application, same as a small business. And you need to be located in the state of New York because you need to be offering direct services to New Yorkers. Please note that the pre-application, again, should only be completed by a member of the nonprofit's executive team. So they're going to be required to attest to the information. They're the ones that are going to have to sign on the process. So as part of the application for documentation, for a nonprofit, they're going to be looking for their most audited and reviewed financial statements, internal financial statements for the nonprofit. Again, this is pretty similar. You're going to need the current tax returns, the IRS Form 990. You're going to need evidence of legal formation of a nonprofit. So it's going to be your articles of incorporations and your bylaws. That attestation form that you didn't receive a loan that was greater than $50,000 from PPP or EIDL. Information on the executive team member who's signing the loan. You'll notice there's no requirement for credit report. There are no credit report requirements for that executive team member because not for a nonprofit. Nonprofit board approval and resolution. Could have permission to borrow, of course, by the nonprofit board, and a brief description of the COVID-19 impacts and job revenues. And again, that goes along with your use of funds. And the lender, once again, is going to reach out to the loan applicant to collect the required documentation, conduct the credit checks, and finalize the application review process. So now I want to take a minute, and I'm going to go through the application questions. Now, these are the actual application questions. This is the actual application process at New York, at the NY Loan Fund website. These are the actual questions you need to be able to answer. You'll see it's very straightforward, and you could probably go through them in 5 minutes or less. So question number one, how much do I want to borrow? Well, we just talked about how much you're allowed to borrow. This is where you want to put in an estimate as to how much you think you want to borrow. This isn't cast in stone. Of course, the maximum amount is $100,000, but this can change. This is a situation where put in how much you think you want and you think you can qualify for. It can go up and down once you actually have gone through the qualification process and they've verified how much you're eligible to borrow. So you can change it after the fact. Just try to make an educated guess as to how much you think you're going to need. Question two, how do you plan to use your loan? These are all working capital loans. So to make a long story short, I would just suggest you select working capital on this to make sure that you get matched with a lender. If you choose working capital, you're safe. You know you're going to get matched. So please select working capital. There are other choices on this list. And to make a long story short, it's the folks that are running this application portal actually run it for other programs also. And there are other programs that can offer things in other places, not here in New York. There's no way to take these other listings like refinance existing debt out of the equation. So that's why we tell everyone to please choose working capital. Actually, even says it on the screen there. Please select working capital. Question number 3, when do you need financing by? Now, this is really to see what the urgency of your request is. Everyone's going to pretty much pick today. Of course, you can't get your money today, but generally it's going to take, once everything is in place and you've completed all the documentation that the lender's going to require from you, it's probably going to take 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to actually get through the entire process, to get through underwriting, get it all closed. But this really is a guidepost. This really just sees how desperate the need really is, so to make sure that they're aware of the situation that you're in. It's not going to affect your matching, but I would just choose the timing range that's closest to what you really need. Now, question 4. This is important. Tell us a little bit about your business. You have to detail the name of your business. You want to detail the structure of your business type, LLC, sole proprietorship, partnership, nonprofit. You want to detail it there in that drop down. There is an industry drop down. Select the industry that you're in. Small landlords are going to want to select landlord as their industry. Please don't select real estate. I wouldn't suggest anybody select real estate because that can get caught up with a landlord situation. So I would select, if there's another industry that doesn't fit, I would choose other before I chose real estate myself. Along with your time in business. Remember, you need to be in business for at least a year. So you're going to want to choose at least a year that you've been in business, or it won't match. If you put in less than a year, it's not going to match you to a lender. Now, where's your business located? Obviously, this is important too. So you're going to want to put in the valid business address. You're going to put in the legal address for your business. I wouldn't use a P.O. box. I would put in a physical address. You can put your P.O. box on the second line if you need to. What this is going to do to make this process simpler for everybody, the website itself is smart enough to figure out what county you're in, what economic development region you're in, what census tract you're in. And it does that all based upon your address. So you don't have to try to figure any of that out for yourself. And if it doesn't have a valid address to base that off of, it's not going to know where you're really located. It's going to have a hard time matching you. It might not match you. It might, it'll basically create a problem. So use your legal address, use your legal street address. That will make life a lot easier and increase the chances of you getting matched by the website. And small residential landlords, I would use the location of your building. Again, the building needs to be located in New York State. Next question. Question 6, how can we reach you? This is obviously important too. You're going to want to put down the contact information for the primary owner or somebody with a greater than 20% stake. And nonprofit applicants are going to want to put in the contact information for the person in the executive team that's going to be signing. They're going to ask you how would you like to be contacted and what time do you prefer to be contacted. The lenders are going to do their best to try to follow those rules, but please monitor that channel. If you put in your email address, monitor that email box. Take a look at it multiple times a day. Check your spam. Make sure it hasn't gone to spam. It's very hard to keep things from going to spam, especially when you're an organization that sends out a lot of emails. Your phone number. If you've got one phone number that works better, if your cell phone works better, you choose your cell phone. But monitor that channel for contact because it's really important. They need to be able to get back a hold of you. Question 7. And this is pretty straightforward. This is actually a range of choices. What was your total revenue last year? It's going to ask for an estimate as to how much revenue you had. Businesses of any size below $3 million will match. More businesses will match if you've had more than $100,000 in revenue a year. So there are more choices for lenders if you have more than $100,000 in revenue a year. So you're going to want to choose the range of where your revenue fits. And again, you're not going to want to exceed $3 million. Nonprofits, you're going to want to use your annual operating budget. So that's pretty straightforward. Question 8, simple yes or no question. Did you earn a profit last year? If you did, if you think you earned $1, select yes. If you didn't, you can select no. Doesn't mean you're not going to get matched, but it does mean that it's going to limit who can lend to you because not all the lenders can do a loan to a nonprofit or an unprofitable business. I shouldn't say nonprofit business, so that too. So if you are you sure you earned a profit? Even if it was $1, choose yes. And then your next question, question 9, is going to ask how much you think your net profit was. So try to enter an approximate value based on your tax return if you can. If you know off the top of your head, it's worth taking a look at. So now, next question. Question 10. I need a few more details about your business. So this is where it's going to outline that how many employees you have. And for small businesses and nonprofits, again, you can employ up to 20 employees. Small residential landlords are going to want to put in the number of units they have. And if you've had any prior bankruptcies. Once again, prior bankruptcy does not disqualify you from receiving a New York Forward loan, but the number of bankruptcies you've had could. So if you've had 4 bankruptcies, that could be a problem. If you've had a bankruptcy, that's probably not a problem. But you're going to want to detail that in that question. Question 11, do you have the collateral to support a loan? There are no collateral requirements for these loans, so you can always just choose none, and that's fine. It's not going to affect your matching. But if you have collateral, it might be worth letting the bank know. So I would check off if you do have collateral that you think is available to support a loan, put it down. Question 12, how much revenue do you expect to make this year? Again, this is in a range. You want to put in an expected value. Some businesses are going to make more revenue than they did last year. Some are going to make less. But just put in an expected range of how much you think you're going to make in 2020. Question 13, do you have a business plan? You do not have to have a business plan to get matched with the New York Forward Loan Fund loan. However, if you do have a business plan, you have it available, you'll want to select yes, because having a business plan probably means you have a market analysis, an overview of your business, along with financial projections. You're probably better prepared with the lender, and the lender's going to want to know that because it can probably save you some steps if you already have one. So if you do have one, select yes. If you don't have one, select no. Don't sweat it, but if you did, it'll help. Question 14, this one's obviously important. Is your business owned by a woman, person of color, a veteran, or an LGBTQ identifying person? So question 14 is just a yes or no question. You want to answer yes if that's the case, answer no if it's not. If you answer yes, you're going to go on to the next question. If you answer no, it's going to skip over the next question. And small businesses are going to answer, small businesses and small residential landlords are going to want to answer for anybody who has at least 20% ownership of their business. Nonprofits, answer for your executive team. You do not need to be New York State certified. That is not a requirement. So don't worry about certification. You just want to answer the question. So question 15 is a select all that apply question. So you're going to want to select all of the categories that fit for everyone on your team and click continue. Very straightforward. And now our last question, question 16. What is your personal credit score? It's going to ask you for a range where you think your credit score lies. If you don't know, you don't know. Some people have a good idea. Some people don't have a great idea. But if you've got a decent idea, you're going to want to choose the proper range. The only time a credit score, there is a low spot where I think that the maximum credit or the minimum credit score they're going to accept is probably going to be someplace in the 570s. From the lenders, but just answer the best you can. Understand there's going to be a credit report pulled anyway, but this helps guide the matching system a little bit. So you've gone through your 16 questions, and it has matched you. So this is the matching screen. You're going to get something on the screen that looks similar to this. Here, this particular borrower matched to 3 different lenders. Axion, Pursuit, and True Fund. All are matches for their allocation and the amount they want to borrow in their business. So you only need to choose one. Just look on the side there. You see the big connect button. You want to click connect and send your information off to a lender. It's very important you click connect because if you don't, it's not going to send your information to anybody. So make sure you click connect when you see a screen like this. Even if there's just one choice, you're still going to want to hit connect. Now, there is no real difference as far as no real benefit to go with one particular lender over another in this program. Everyone has the same interest rate. Everyone has the same loan term. Everyone's really following the same parameters as far as what the qualifications are, what your costs are going to be, your fees. It's all the same. So what I will suggest is if you are familiar or more familiar with one lender than another, I would choose them. You can always choose, like for example, by the way, Pursuit is the new name for NYBDC. So if you've ever had a loan with NYBDC or the Excelsior Growth Fund, they're now known as Pursuit. True Fund Financial Services is an organization that covers a good part of New York State. They're actually expanding towards the western New York. They've done most of their business in the city and in Long Island so far, but they're eagerly expanding upstate. And L.E.A.R.N, of course, is a large CDFI that does a lot of loans. So choose whoever you feel comfortable with. When you do make that selection, you're going to get a confirmation screen. So you're going to get a screen that says something like this. This person chose L.E.A.R.N, where it shows that, yes, we submitted this information to your lender. You're going to get this in your email as well. So watch your email. Watch to make sure that you received this. If you print it out for screen if you want, but it's got contact information for that particular lender. You see there's an email address that you can access. Each of the lenders is a little different, of course. But now your information's on its way to the lender, generally in between 24 hours and depending on your location, it could be a week or two, you're going to hear a response back from the lender. The lender's going to try to reach out to you. If you haven't heard anything in that amount of time, then you might want to follow up. You might want to watch. Again, check your spam filter. Make sure that your contact information is correct, or that you're monitoring it, because they've probably tried to get a hold of you and haven't been able to. So now some special notes. Got some special notes and some resources that you can use in order to help. These are resources that are specific really to ESD. So special notes on the fund. Of course, participating lenders are responsible for making their own credit decisions. We can't really affect the outcome of these loans. It's up to the lender and their underwriting, and they get to make their own decisions. And due to the expected high demand, the number of loan fund loans will ultimately be limited. It'll probably be 30 or 40,000 loans, but it will ultimately be limited. And due to the limited amount of funding and the high volume of requests expected, sometimes your business type, your geography, and your industry will factor into your matching, to your ability to receive a loan, which we discussed. Applications are going to be reviewed on a rolling basis. Please note submitting a pre-application is not an indication of eligibility or that you can be funded or approved. And we recommend that you do apply as soon as possible. In the event that the website is not working or is overwhelmed, we recommend you check back and submit your pre-application. Website's operated very well, but I will say this: a borrower need only submit one application because those loan terms don't change from lender to lender. If you've been matched to 3 lenders, there's no point in going back through and putting yourself through 3 times. In fact, it's actually going to slow the process down. It will create a problem. It creates a problem for them when they're trying to underwrite it. It creates a problem when they're trying to fund it. It creates a problem across the board. So multiple requests are going to slow that process down, because the loan approval criteria is similar from lender to lender. But it's also important to note that if you are declined by a lender, you're going to probably be declined by all the lenders. So you can't reapply for another lender in the same program, unfortunately. Another special note, this is an example of monthly payments. Gives you a little idea what your monthly payments would look like at a variety of different borrowing amounts, $100,000, $50,000, $20,000. Of course, your payment's going to be based upon how much you're borrowing. This is just an illustration. But you'll see that for the first year, this interest-only payments drive the payment down quite a bit, so that you can, you can try to catch your breath and recover. This information, this table is also available on the New York Forward Loan Fund site in the frequently asked questions. If you want to go back to it, look at it again. Also, there's some free assistance in preparing applications. Small business development centers around the state, usually they're on SUNY campuses. The Entrepreneurship Assistance Centers. Entrepreneurship Assistance Center program is a program that's run by ESD Small Business. It's 24 centers around the state that offer boot camp classes and assistance in completing things like business plans and so forth. There is a list of them available online. There's one that covers every county, every region in the state. The community development financial institutions around you, there's a list, again, a full list on the ESD website. some of the community development financial institutions that are not part of this program as far as lending is concerned still actually get money to help you with things like business plans, and they may be able to assist you while you're trying to collect up your information. The Business Mentor New York COVID-19 Task Force. Business Mentor New York is an online system that we have that is all volunteers. It's a volunteer-based sort of like I'll call it like almost a Facebook, where mentors, people who are volunteering, they're successful business people, are volunteering their skills and their knowledge to small businesses that are in need of knowledge and need of those sorts of skills, and both of them can create profiles, and they can connect to each other through the website and try to find people to help guide them. It's a good way to network. It's a good business networking tactic too, and a lot of times it's a good place to look for something if you're looking for something very specific. Say you're somebody who needs help trying to find, I don't know, I'm trying to import something and I don't know where to begin. There are people that are on, Business Mentor New York that are importers that can probably, give you some guidance. The ESD Small Business Division website, which is going to have all of our programs listed, and specifically for small landlords, the Homes Community Renewal website has a page specifically for this program. The small landlord portion of this program is being handled by Homes Community Renewal. They're really the lead, not so much Empire State Development, but they are a good place to look if you've got specific questions. And also I want to point out real quick, the Entrepreneurship Assistance Centers, if you're matched to a lender, you may actually even hear from an Entrepreneurship Assistance Center, because some of them are working on helping the lenders collect up information. So when they're trying to get your tax returns and things like that, you may hear from one of them trying to help you. That they're working on behalf of those CDFIs to try to accelerate the process for you, because there are a lot of applications. So now I'm going to take some time for some questions and answers. So if you do have any questions, hopefully I have answers. Don't be afraid to submit them to me. Send them in the chat window. Whatever works for you.
Man, thank you so much, Matthew. That was a ton of information. But no, not even in a bad way. Like it's awesome. My thing is navigating this solo would be so daunting, and it's good for you. It's good to be able to sit down with someone, because people don't have the access to do this every day, to have someone literally walk them through the steps and the processes of this loan program. Again, the resources for assistance are out there, but sometimes getting access to the information is what's limiting. And that's why we wanted to offer this session today, and why we wanted to partner with business leaders of colors to make this available to people. And that's why we're going to share it on both of our websites, so that people can go back and watch this session later. And, your insight is invaluable. So before we even get to the Q&A, thank you so much for your time. You've been great.
Oh. And I want to make sure I point out that, because that Paycheck Protection Program rule is something that changed recently, you might still see information out there that hasn't been updated yet that says that you're ineligible. This is the current information. If you did $50,000 or less, you are eligible. So I want to make sure that that's clear to everybody. That there's other information that's probably out there that says that you're not, but you are. This is state of the art, this moment information.
And I'm glad that you shared that, because I don't know if people will be able to see this later, but in the comments, we had a participant who said, "Thank you for offering these presentations. I received PPP, so it looks like I won't be eligible. Best of luck to the others." So I'm actually going to circle back to her and let her know that she may want to go back and watch this anyway, because she may have been working off of older information that she thought she was ineligible based because she received the PPP.
Right, and it's $50,000 or less. So as long as, and that covers a lot of small businesses. A lot of PPP loans were very small. So because it was based on payroll, and for a lot of small businesses, if you only had a couple employees, it was 8 weeks of payroll. If you have 3 employees, 8 weeks of payroll is probably a lot less than $50,000. So you weren't able to borrow very much money. And that's really what we found as we were going along, is that there were a lot of people that had taken advantage of PPP, but just hadn't gotten enough money. They just didn't get enough money to do what they needed to do. So we realized that we needed to make a change. We needed to get permission to make a change to move that threshold up so that this could be accessed by people like that. Because, that's the point, is to try to get it out to as many people as possible. And at the beginning, the primary concern was that if there was too much demand for it, we were going to not be able to do that. So, we realized that later on, because of that growth of PPP, so many more people took advantage of PPP later than they did in that first month, that there was an opportunity for us to change it and to adjust it. Idle grants, overall, also an adjustment. Originally, idle grants weren't allowed. And then ultimately, it became clear that idle grants, the idle grants they received were very small. $10,000 is actually the maximum idle grant, but most people got $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. They didn't get very much money. So it didn't make sense that wasn't conducive to not enough money to survive, So that was our reasoning.
We do have Gladys and we have Chuck Dong here. Did either of you, I hate to put you guys on the spot, so if you don't have any questions, that's fine. But did you guys have any individualized or additional questions that you wanted to throw to Matthew while we have him?
I don't. Matthew covered a lot, very detailed. I appreciate it.
I agree.
No, this information is also all available on the website. And most of what I've covered is even on the New York Forward Loan Fund site in the frequently asked questions. So don't be afraid to explore the site and take a look at those things. The pre-application, you can go all the way to the end before you click submit to a lender, and your information doesn't go to the lender until then. So,
right.
All right. Well, actually, I would like to thank you, Matthew, for all of this information, because I definitely will be putting this on my website, and also make you aware of the fact that Business Leaders of Colors has partnered with Alternatives Federal Credit Union, and they are a CDFI. So
okay.
The business plans and market analysis and things like that is a service that we provide. And we do that for at least 7 counties in the Southern Tier. So wanted to make you aware of that we can too provide that type of service through Alternatives Federal Credit Union.
Terrific. I'm not sure. So there are a number of CDFIs that received money specifically for backing this program. I'm not sure if Alternatives is in there or not. I'm not sure, but like I said, yeah, CDFIs are a great resource. They really truly are. Mm-hmm. It's a shame that more people don't realize that they're out there. A lot of small businesses. I can honestly say that before I worked for Empire State Development, I had a small business. I had no idea that CDFIs existed. I had no idea.
I didn't about them. So
yeah,
that's good to know.
I was amazed. By.
I'm sorry. Quickly, also, even if Alternatives Federal Credit Union is not receiving funding for this, their goal is to help small business owners. So they will still work with small business owners to help them get the information that they need so they can apply for these loans. So Terrific. It's really about just helping the small business owner in whatever way that they can, with the market analysis and the business plans.
That's great.
So what I'm gonna just ask here at the end, thinking about people that will want to have these resources available, Matthew, would it be possible for you to email Gladys and myself a copy of the PowerPoint? That way, when we share the webinar on our websites, if people would like to follow up through the chamber or through Block, we both would have access to the PowerPoint that we could send people individually.
Sure, no problem. In fact, it's also on our website. It's also on the ESD website, a version of this. So But I'll send it over to you. I'll send a PDF over.
Great.
Excellent.
And so for anyone who's watching this later on, feel free to email me direct with any questions that you have. That's D as in David Walton, dwalton@tompkinschamber.org. I would type it in the chat, but I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see that later. Gladys, would you be okay sharing your email with people, or if they wanted to email you through Block?
Absolutely. It's Gladys, GLADYS, @businessleadersofcolors.com.
Awesome. So again, I want to just extend our gratitude on behalf of the Chamber. Gladys, on behalf of Block, thank you guys for co-hosting this with us. Matthew Kennedy, thank you for being here and guiding us through this amazing program that's going to be helping small businesses across the state. To all of our attendees that are watching this now and people that are watching this later, thank you as well. And a huge thank you to Tompkins Trust Company for sponsoring our Learn series and making these webinars through Learn available to everyone within Tompkins County and within our membership. So you guys have a great night. Be safe, be blessed, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, David.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Have a good night. Be safe, everyone.
Yep,
You guys too.
you too.